Where is she? What happened? When will we find her? Those are the questions that everyone else in Sarai Hildebrand's life was asking. Except for the defendant, Zarius Hildebrand, as he already knew all those answers. On Sunday, August 5th, 2023, Sarai had planned some events and presents as it was the defendant's 21st birthday. She had planned for some friends to go out. A few came over. She made him a present in the form of a beer cake, and she was excited to celebrate him. One of those friends that came over was Marie Wentz, to their apartment at 5210 Mockingbird Drive, Unit 13. Marie had become friends with Sarai since she moved to Alaska. They were inseparable, texting constantly. They were together that day. That morning, they had gone to the gym, as they frequently did, and then ran some errands in preparation for his birthday. Later that evening, the group went to Dave & Buster's. They were winning prizes and playing games and having a good time. Sarai was extremely excited to win a Pickle Rick plushie. She was texting her mom about it. She was even Googling how to win the most points at Dave & Buster's. And she did win it. And she took a photo with her husband to celebrate that. After Dave & Buster's, they left. At Dave & Buster's, there was a much larger group, and then some of them went downtown. The people that went downtown are Logan Calhoun and Zachary Farrar, who were friends with the defendant, as well as Marie Wentz and her friend, Isaac Mulholland, who were friends more so with Sarai. They went out to Willowa. They were dancing and having a good time, drinking, taking photos, celebrating, as they should have. At one point in the night, they decided to walk to Gaslight. One of the defendant's friends, Logan, was a little nervous to walk downtown. Everybody was kind of giving him grief for that, making fun of him. When they got to Gaslight, the defendant was declined entry. He was a little bummed, but eventually Sarai ordered them an Uber home, where she took the defendant, Marie, and Isaac back to 5210 Mockingbird Drive. Marie and Isaac went their separate way in the parking lot, as Sarai walked inside with the defendant, helping him along, but he was walking fine. They get inside alone, and that was the last time Sarai Hildebrand was ever seen alive. In that apartment that night, it was the two of them. According to the defendant, at one point, they'd gone inside. She probably took the dogs out. They were even giving each other grief back and forth, making fun of each other before they fell asleep. However, between 2:12 and 2:24 a.m. that day, Sarai found evidence of the defendant cheating on her on Snapchat and Instagram, sending photos to girls, offering to fly them out to Alaska, getting photos from them, sending plenty, even offering to kiss and make it better. The last photo that we see on Sarai's phone that night was at 2:24. After that, at 2:40, Marie got a call from Sarai's phone. Unfortunately, she had been home for a while. She didn't see it. It went unanswered. Just 8 minutes later, at 2:48 a.m., 911 got a call from Taylor Engstrom, a neighbor in the apartment just across the courtyard. He calls in and says, about 30 seconds ago, there was a gunshot. It sounded just outside my window. It was very loud. I don't know where it came from, but he called it in. Sarai Hildebrand was shot in the head that night, just above her left temple, and that ended her life. In those early morning hours, officers did respond to that 911 call, but without knowing directly where it's from. They didn't have the opportunity to contact the defendant that night. The next morning, early morning hours of Sunday, August 6th, around 9:10, no one heard from Sarai. No messages, no one heard from her. Marie Wentz eventually sent a message believe a Snapchat, asking how Sarai and the defendant were feeling. She got a response from Sarai's phone, but it wasn't from Sarai. That response was from the defendant, sending a thumbs up that he felt fine. Marie asked if they would want to go to lunch and get some food, probably to help with some of the feelings they were having that morning. The defendant said, "No, we can't go, we don't want to go." Sarai already left and walked to work at 10 that day. Marie found that a little odd, considering the defendant said Sarai forgot her phone. Sarai was always on her phone. 21-year-old on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, texting, all of the above. However, she didn't push it. She also found it odd because the night before, Sarai had said she intended on calling out. So she didn't expect Sarai to go to work, let alone to walk. But she understood the defendant had her phone and that she would hear from her friend later. At least she hoped. But she didn't. Throughout Sunday, August 6th, Marie wasn't the only one to get messages from Sarai's phone. Nadia Jones was Sarai's manager at Bread and Brew. At 10:44 a.m., she got a text. "Hey, this is Sarai. Can't make it in today, giving an excuse." Nadia took that at face value, and no one else heard from Sarai's phone that day. Marie had reached out a few times between the end of Sunday, sending DMs or funny videos, asking, "Where are you? Why haven't you talked to me?" Because this was the longest they had gone in their friendship without talking, so she found it very odd. But Monday, August 7th came. The defendant went to work. You heard from one of his friends that he works with on base at the Army that he seemed a little off. So he asked, "Is everything okay?" He said, "Yeah, just stuff going on. I'll talk to you about it later." That's it. Then about midday, early afternoon, Marie gets a call from Sarai's phone again. It's Mr. Hildebrand. He says, "Hey, Sarai has been missing since 10 a.m. yesterday." Marie goes, "What do you mean?" It's been 30 hours. She doesn't have her phone. She immediately gets concerned. She tells him, "I'll come over as soon as I can right after work," but she was stuck there for a few more hours. And she did go straight over. She asked, "Have you reported her missing? Where could she be?" She's so concerned for her friend because she's been missing for so long and she doesn't have her phone and she didn't hear from her. Once Marie was with the defendant, that's when calls started being made to hospitals, jails, and even to 911, which hadn't been done yet. Marie made that call.
Please dispatch. Hi, I think my friend is missing. Okay. And why do you think she's missing, or he or she's missing? I haven't spoken to her in 2 days, and her husband hasn't heard from her in over a day, like 30 hours now.
And you'll hear the entirety of that call. He was there, and Marie put it on speaker so he could answer questions that she didn't know. But Marie made that call at 5:34 p.m. While they waited for an APD officer to arrive, they started searching. The apartments at 5210 Markenberg are at the bottom of your screen. Up in the top right on Tudor is where Sarai worked at Bread and Brew. So they started searching that area. Where could she be? Walking around through the woods, getting muddy. During that time, Marie was searching. She had called 911. The defendant's with her, and they're waiting on APD. Marie has to call a few more times to update APD where they are, when they're coming. That's not the only call that was made to inform Sarai missing. Meredith Barney, Sarai's mother, got a call in Utah at 7:44 p.m. Alaska time, almost 10 p.m. her time, from the defendant, Zarius Hildebrand. "Hey, Sarai is missing. Has been for over 33 hours. And he told that same scripted story left for work at 10 a.m. on Sunday, didn't take her phone, haven't heard from her. Meredith immediately jumped on a plane. She's coming to find her daughter. On the plane, she's coordinating with her family to make a missing poster, to try to find Sarai, to even figure out if she can track a phone, all of those things. But she didn't find her that day. One other thing on Monday, August 7th, is APD Officer Zhang did respond. And he asked the defendant many questions. Has Sarai ever gone missing before? No. We get that same scripted answer. Left at 10 a.m. to walk to work. Didn't have her phone. Haven't seen her. Don't know what happened. He asks, has she ever had suicidal tendencies or something that could explain this? He says, no, not at all. I don't know where she is. She was wearing all black when she went to work. Black graphic tee. Don't know where. Forgot her phone. She's gone. Later that evening, one of Marie and the defendant's mutual friends, Dalen Gates, came over. Dalen worked in the Army with the defendant, and he knew Marie through other mutual friends. Marie at that point was covered in mud. It was late in the evening. She had to go let her dog out. So she briefly crossed paths with Dalen. But Dalen was the one who went inside and spent time with him to check on his friend. He was concerned for him. He made him dinner. And then he watched as Zaris Hildebrand cried. I think it was ugly cried. And said, I'm blaming myself. It's all my fault. But then I should have driven her to work that morning. Crying as his friends trying to console him, thinking his wife is missing. Tuesday, August 8th. Defendant goes to work again. At this point, his chain of command in the Army is now made aware of what's going on. Also, Sarai was in the military in the National Guard, so her chain of command has been involved. The Army Criminal Investigation Division, called CID, which is fancy military police, was also investigating this case for the missing person. They started coordinating with APD, doing their own investigation. Then Meredith arrives. Her plane lands. She goes straight to Anchorage Police Department headquarters. Straight there, goes to the front desk. Where is my daughter? What are we doing to find her? What have you found out? Who was with her at headquarters? Her sister, who had flown hundreds of miles to be there to ask that same question. Who wasn't? The defendant. He said, I can't find my wallet, so I don't have my driver's license, so I'm gonna sit this one out. So he didn't go. When Meredith went to headquarters, that's when Detective Troy Clark and other members of the Anchorage Homicide Unit were assigned, as the Homicide Unit also investigates missing persons. Him and other detectives began their investigation. They reviewed the 911 call from Marie. They reviewed the statement to Officer Zhang. They coordinated with CID, trying to catch up on what's going on. And then, that evening, they went to 5210 Mockingbird Drive. They coordinated with the Army, who sent his entire battalion, over 70 soldiers, to do a search of that area, trying to find Sarai. They didn't find her that day. When Detective Clark, and with him Detective Jeff Elby, went to unit number 13, or just outside the apartment building, they went with Zaris Hildebrand, the defendant, to his apartment that he shared with Sarai. He let them in. He talked to them. He gave that same scripted story. Left for work at 10 a.m., forgot her phone, don't know what happened. He told them, I was home all Sunday, just vegetating, kind of recovering. Didn't leave the house. So they start asking him, okay, what happened Sunday morning? He says they woke up at 8:30 or 9 after sleeping in the same bed together, and that she, at 10 o'clock, went to work. 10 o'clock, walked to work, which was her first time doing that, as she had never walked before. He explained that they may have still been a little buzzed, so she was hesitant about driving. However, when he was asked what time she was expected home, he said 7 p.m. on Sunday, August 6th. He didn't see her at 7 p.m. So he decided to wait, according to what he told detectives, until 9 p.m. to make sure she wasn't lost or something. And then he said that he went out searching, drove in the parking lot of Bread and Brew, looked all over. And we'll get to what he did that day and evening in a moment. When asked, why did you wait so long, over 30 hours to report her missing, he said, I didn't know if it was serious. I didn't want to waste anybody's time. When Detective Clark asked, where do you think we're going to find Sarai? He paused, hesitated, takes a breath. You'll hear many of those statements. It says, I think she'll be within a 2 to 3 mile radius of here. We'll later find out that was correct. While officers were speaking with him, Detective Clark and Detective Elby, they were looking around the apartment when they were in the living room with him. They saw a set of brand new sheets on the table. They asked him about it. He said, I didn't buy those. I've never even been at the sheet aisle in Fred Meyer. She must have bought them when I was on field training the week before. Okay. Officers ask if they can take a look around the apartment, just make sure she's not there in one of the rooms they can't see. He allows them. He says, go ahead, take a look. Officers do. They don't find Sarai. At one point, they notice that on his bed that he shared with Sarai is a mattress pad, like a mattress topper cover. And they ask, hey, why don't you have sheets on the bed? He says, I do. They're under the mattress topper. Detectives go, why would you put them under the mattress topper? He says, oh, we got the mattress from someone crummy, that's why. Here, I'll show you. And he lifts the edge of the mattress topper, showing the sheets. However, when he does that, detectives can see that there's a space under the bed. There's not a box spring. They ask, hey, can we take a look under there? Mr. Hildebrand gives an alternative offer. I have embarrassing stuff under there. It's inappropriate. Detectives just point out they want to make sure she's not under there. He says, no, she's not. She wouldn't fit. Detectives accept that answer at that time and leave. But before they did, they asked a few more questions, including, hey, you have her phone right now. We just saw her mom grab it with her laptop. Can you explain to me how, if she left at 10 a.m. on Sunday, how did Nadia Jones get a text at 10:44 if you had her phone? I don't have an explanation for that, sir. That was his response. I don't have an explanation for that. That night, or in that evening, the defendant also stopped by her work for the first time. Went inside on Tuesday, August 8th. One of the employees he had contact with was Kaylani Thompson. She wasn't super close with Sarai, but worked with her. Knew her fairly well. Knew that she had gone out on Saturday. Wasn't shocked that she didn't come in on Sunday. But when he came in, Kaylani will tell you about how weird his vibe was. He was nervous, kept scratching, wouldn't look her in the eye, looked anywhere else. So she thought that was odd, and she started asking him questions. He wouldn't answer. She was told by some people, don't push him. His wife's missing. However, when she saw the defendant outside with some of that Army search crew that we talked about, he was laughing and smiling and joking around. I think she described it as they were hee-hee-ha-haing, which she found very concerning because Saraya's missing. But that's what the defendant did. Now, Wednesday, August 9th. Throughout this investigation, actually, I want to back up to one more point. When he spoke to detectives on the 8th, originally he said I was home vegetating all day. When they said, hey, we'll check cameras, is there anything else? He goes, oh, actually, I ran some errands. I went to Fred Meyer's and got stuff for guacamole salsa, and I also went to Brown Jug. So he changed that from being home all day. Now, on to August 9th, August 9th, the Wednesday. Police at that point had applied for and been granted a search warrant to search 5210 Mockingbird Drive, Unit 13, for evidence of what happened to Sarai. Originally, on the surface, just as they were there wasn't anything obviously out of the concern. Pickle Rick made it back on the bed. But when they began to look more closely, they were able to start seeing reddish-brown stains. When they began to look more closely, they could see those reddish-brown stains. Multiple places all over the apartment. And that's what they saw when they lifted the bed. Not embarrassing sex stuff, but a mattress so soaked through it with blood that when it was flipped, the framing it was on actually imprinted into the blood. They also observed mop buckets, disinfecting wipes, multiple things throughout the apartment. There'll be ample evidence as to what crime scene found in his apartment. Another thing they found is in the living room, in between the couch cushions, tan Sig Sauer handgun tucked in between the things. Just near there on a table, they found letters authored by the defendant, where he says, "I don't know where you are. I hope you're found alive. If not, if she's found alive or dead, please bury her with me." But one thing he says is, "I loved her," in the past tense. Sarai's still missing. He also drafts one to APD. For all the people working the case, I'm sorry the information I gave you wasn't the best. Signed, Gary Sildebrand. Please continue their investigation into Thursday, August 10th. On Thursday, August 10th, they're again searching that area between her apartment and Bread and Brew. And you'll see on maps and photos throughout this trial that there's a frontage road, less than 100 yards, maybe a couple hundred yards from the apartment building. As they're searching, they end up finding a trash can, 96-gallon toter trash can with wheels. Stickers still on it. Here's brand new. As there was a landscaping crew that had been contracted by Parks and Rec, and they had been cleaning the area, and they found it and had put it in their truck. May have been a little excited to get a brand new trash can. But officers in the area saw it and said, "Wait," because it was relevant to the case. And they looked in that trash can. There was red-brown staining. There was organic material. And they did a full crime scene analysis on this trash can, using forensic techniques, photographs, and other things you'll hear throughout this trial. The next thing they found was just a couple hundred yards, less than a quarter mile from that apartment, 5210 Mockingbird, on that same frontage road, in that same area as the trash can. We found the storm drain.
Counsel, can you approach, please?
They found this storm drain. When Officer Muma and Detective C were doing drone and searches in the area, they saw this. The cover was on. Shone a flashlight through the hole and they saw something down there. It's about 15 feet down with a culvert running side to side. This was the place that Sarai was found. This was the place where her body was found, with a bullet wound above her left eyebrow. She had been for likely days in that water. In there was a blanket, a pillow, a sheet, as well as some tan, military-looking gloves. Those were also in there with her. Throughout this case, you'll hear many pieces of evidence. Before I get there, I want to inform you of the counts against the defendant, as he's charged with count 1, murder in the first degree. You'll get ample instructions on this. However, to prove murder in the first degree, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which the state happily accepts that burden. The defendant intended to cause the death of another person, being Sarai Hildebrand, and the defendant caused that death of any person. As to count 2, this is an alternate theory. So a different theory from count 1. It has an argument.
Can you approach, please?
As to count 2, an alternate theory. The elements here are the defendant's conduct caused the death of another person. The defendant knowingly engages in that conduct, so a different mental state. And the defendant's conduct was performed under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to the value of human life. Extreme indifference to the value of human life means extreme recklessness. You'll be provided an instruction with the factors to consider for that. As to count 3 and 4, they're for tampering with physical evidence. Tampering with her body for 1 count, and tampering with the crime scene at 5210 Mockingbird Drive, Unit 13 for the other. Throughout this case, evidence will be shown to prove these beyond a reasonable doubt. Some of those will be on August 6th. He did go to Fred Meyer. However, there was no guacamole supplies when he went the first time at 12:26 p.m. He purchased Gatorade, marinara sauce, and brand new sheets. You'll watch a video of him making that purchase. He put in his loyalty member number. Points. He went again at 6:12, where he purchased hydrogen peroxide, other cleaning supplies, Q-tips. Then he went to Lowe's, 8 p.m. Bought a 96-gallon toter trash can. And then he went back to Fred Meyer when apparently he was in the Bread and Brew parking lot or searching the woods. But back to Fred Meyer and bought a new mattress pad and a Red Bull. All of this evidence will be presented in the coming weeks. Also found during the crime scene, carpet cleaner. A swab of that carpet cleaner was sent to the statewide crime detection laboratory. DNA analysis was performed by Dr. Emily Matthews on this, as well as other items in this case. The swab of that matched the DNA of Sarai Hildebrand. We also found that hydrogen peroxide and many other signs and evidence of cleaning up. We'll hear about the forensic techniques used, the evidence brought, and how they collected it. Some other experts you'll hear in this case besides Dr. Matthews and the DNA. She's an expert in forensic biological analysis. You'll hear from Melanie Wright, who did prints in this case, and the evidence she looked at, the processes she went through, and her findings. You'll hear from firearms expert Samantha Castle, who tested target to distance, and her ultimate finding was that it was unlikely the evidence of stippling and the evidence of the wound, as well as the make and model of the gun, would allow this to be suicide. That would be unlikely. You also hear that Samantha Castle tested that gun. She fired a test round and had the stippling and rifling that she can compare. She did compare that to what medical examiner Dr. Kenneth Gallagher found when he performed the autopsy on Sarai Hildebrand on Friday, August 11th, where he found multiple fragments of bullets left in her skull from the damage they had done. Samantha Castle was able to match one of those fragments with certainty and one with a little less certainty. They came from that gun. The less certainty was due to the size of the fragments, but the biggest fragment matched. You'll hear from many witnesses in this case. You'll hear from Meredith Barney, what happened when she spoke with the defendant. You'll hear from Marie once about how it went that night and what she found. And when the defendant asked her before Sarai's body was found, what property should I give to her family? I was thinking her baby blanket from her childhood and her wedding ring. Sarai hadn't been found yet. That was on Wednesday, or Thursday at the latest. You'll hear from patrol officers who helped investigate this case and how evidence was collected, presented, and sent to the lab. And you'll hear from many detectives who worked with Detective Clark on their ample interviews with Zarius Hildebrand and the inconsistencies they found. And you'll even hear Mr. Hildebrand tell his mom, after he was arrested in this case, "I've tangled myself in lies, probably can't be undone." For all of those reasons, after evidence is presented in the coming weeks, the state will be before you in closing. Apply those factors to the elements that I've put up, showing how the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, and tampering with physical evidence. And we will ask you to find him guilty at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel, you approach, please. Thank you. We're going to take a short break before defense gives their opening statement. And just a reminder, please don't discuss the case. We'll have you back here in a few minutes. And by way of explanation, we have you all the way at the end of the hall. Because there are 16 of you, there's no way you can get into the small room that we have here, so that's a more comfortable space. So that's why you go get your steps in. But we'll have you back here in a few minutes. Thank you. Please be seated. I don't know that it matters to you, Ms. Brewster. The way the cameras are set up, the podium is not captured. It was designed to make sure that we don't have any, that the jury's not captured. And so if you want to pull it back, it's up to you. No?
Judge, I think there's another issue with the cameras. This one here apparently has been capturing my laptop and our...
This is a case that involves the tragedy of a young woman who lost her life to an accident and the story of a scared young man. The evidence in this case will show that Zarius Hildebrand made a lot of poor choices, a lot of mistakes, after he discovered that his wife was deceased in their apartment on the morning of August 6, 2023. He discovered his wife had died from a single gunshot wound to her head. The evidence will show that the gunshot that killed Sarai was the result of a tragic self-inflicted accident. The evidence will show that Zarius did not cause the death of Sarai, which is why, at the conclusion of this trial, we will be asking you, the jury, to return a verdict of not guilty. I want to talk a little about what the evidence will show about Zarius. Zarius was born in Kentucky. He was born to his mother. He had an older sister. He'd have an older brother. He would have a younger brother and a younger sister. And around the age of 5, Zarius was taken into the foster care system. He would be adopted out of foster care by his adoptive family. With his adoptive family, he was with his mother, his father, his older brother, his younger brother MJ, and his little sister. And Zarius grew up in Kentucky. He'd graduate from high school. His oldest brother would get in some trouble. And Zarius wanted to be a role model for his little brother MJ. Zarius joined the military after he graduated from high school. And that's where he met Sarai. Eventually, Zarius would be stationed in Alaska. He and Sarai were married in Utah. And he and Sarai were living in Alaska together on his 21st birthday. Zarius made some poor choices in the relationship. He would get caught Snapchatting with women that weren't Sarai. But on his 21st birthday, he was happy. Sarai wanted to celebrate with him, and so they went out for a celebration. Zarius didn't know on August 5th, 2023, the horror he would wake up to the morning of August 6th, 2023. Like many 21-year-olds, he went out and he partied. What do we know about Zarius? We know he likes to drink. He drank before he was 21. He liked whiskey. In fact, he would drink so much that he would fall asleep. And when he turned 21, he was able to do this legally in a bar. He was excited. He started at Dave & Buster's with Sarai, some other friends. Eventually, the party would move to the Willowa, where he continued to drink. Zarius became highly intoxicated. The party decided to move from the Willowa to the Gaslight. Zarius was so intoxicated, the Gaslight would not let him in. So the party, it's time to end. This is around 1 a.m. on August 6th. Zarius gets in an Uber with his wife, Sarai, their friend, Marie. He throws up in the Uber. They get back to their apartment. He throws up again. Sarai has to help him get into the apartment. Zarius is sleepy. So, what happened between the time Zarius got home with Sarai and the time that he woke up? Well, in his intoxicated state, Zarius's memory isn't fully functioning. He wakes up on August 6th in the morning, and he discovers that his wife is deceased in the bed. She has one gunshot wound to her head, a gunshot wound that you'll hear from an expert in this case, Samantha Castle, that while we don't know the exact range, the gun was fired from not contact to up to 12 inches. Zarius is 21 years old, and he's afraid. What am I going to do? What are people going to say about me? My brother, I'm going to be a disappointment to him. Zarius is scared. And when he's scared, he does some stupid things. He does some offensive things. He does some things he regrets. And you'll hear about those things in this trial. You'll hear about what he did out of fear after he found his wife deceased. Fear is the motivation behind the reason that Zarius did what he did, what you'll hear about. You'll hear how he pretends that she's missing. You'll hear how he went to Lowe's. You'll hear how he purchased a garbage can. You'll hear where his wife was discovered. You will hear those things. What you won't hear is who you won't hear from a single witness who was there when the gun was fired. And so while you will not like what you hear that Zarius did after the fact, while you will see graphic pictures, and you will likely be angry at what Mr. Hildebrand did after he discovered his wife deceased. The evidence simply will not show that Zarius pulled the trigger. That will not be shown. This case is about a young man who made a horrible mistake. This is about the fear that happens and the choices people make when they're put in unthinkable circumstances. This case is a tragedy. It is heartbreaking. But it's not murder. That is why, at the conclusion of this trial, we'll be asking you as a jury to find that Mr. Hildebrand is not guilty of the accusations in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. State, are you prepared with your first witness?
Can I check?
Okay. Ms. Shirley, do you mind moving the podium back, or one of you?
No problem.
Thank you.
The state's first witness is Julie Sopp from the Anchorage Police Department. She's a 911 dispatch supervisor. She has a competing subpoena right now and should be here momentarily.
Do you have an estimate of when she'll arrive?
She should be on her way from the other courthouse, so.
The other courthouse being the Boney?
Correct.
Okay.
So, 5 to 10.
I'm gonna have you folks then go ahead and head back to the jury room. I apologize for this. Hopefully it'll be a short break, but rather than all sitting here silently looking at each other awkwardly, let's take a break, and please don't discuss the case yet. I'll bring you folks back. I did promise you to get your steps in, so I'm making good on that promise. All right.